for the sound. Steel wheels on steel rails.
Design preservation models. These are probably some of my favorite ones to work on as far as end scale kits go. They're pretty simple in a way, but in a way not so much, because there's no notches or anything like that. They have to be assembled by hand, and it does present a bit of a challenge. But once you get it down, they're pretty solid, and I'll show you what I mean. I built a couple of others already a couple weeks ago, and haven't got around to finishing them yet, but these are they're put together very nicely, and the secret is to have good glue joints and have them cleaned up and use the right kind of cement. What I like to use on here for these is the testers. This has got MEK in it, methyl ethyl ketone, so this is pretty volatile stuff. So you want to use enough ventilation around you when you're working on these things. So this is potent stuff, and you do not want to overuse it because it will attack your plastic and it'll make it soft and eat it up. But as you can see, this building is pretty solid, and I don't even have the roof in it yet. This one here, I started working on it. I started putting the framework in to get the roof. I just had to cut the sheet stock out, get that painted, and the roof will be ready to go into this building. So what we're working on right now is called Chars Soda Shop. It's going to be probably something, I don't know, I'll make it something different, but this is what it's supposed to look like when it's finished. And unfortunately, for some reason, the kit does not have the door, the front door in it. So I'm going to have to fabricate something out of some of this strip styrene up here and form some kind of a front door. And I'll probably get into that in a different video or something. But right now I just want to show off the basic construction of the building. What you're going to want to have is, I've already trimmed these off of the sprues. You're going to want to have a flush cutter. These will cut real close to the edge and leave very little behind. Another thing you want to have is a good sharp hobby knife. Sharp, I stress the word sharp because, believe it or not, a sharp knife is less dangerous than a dull knife. A dull knife is dangerous because you'll be pushing on it real hard, and if it lets go on you and you all of a sudden slip, it's going to be very easy to do this number, and you're going to be going in for band-aids or even worse. You may have to, depending on how badly you cut yourself. And finally, just to clean everything up and to make sure that everything's going to be good, you want a nice piece of sandpaper just to smooth everything over once you get everything trimmed down. So let's get to work on this building here and get all the edges ready to be glued up. See how that flashing is just disappearing under the blade of the knife. And again, you can't do this with a dull blade. You can't. You can't get that accurate because you're always trying to dig in and trying to overcome all that resistance. I'm not putting hardly any pressure at all on this. And you can see I'm taking material off. There's plenty of material on the blade. So it is taking material off, and I'm not pushing down on it hardly at all. Just want to get that smooth. You're not trying to gouge this. You're not trying to change the shape. You're just trying to get rid of this little tab on here. And all plastic pieces are going to have that when you cut them like that. And turn it over. Now, some people would prefer to cut away from themselves. I don't particularly like that because the cutting edge is away from where I'm looking, and it's much easier to slip and do this again. So it's not pretty. So I just keep it very carefully pointed towards me, and now I can see the cutting edge of the blade as it's facing me. Notice I'm not holding the blade at an angle. I'm not at an extreme angle. If you hold it like this, you're going to cut into the plastic. If you hold it like this, you're not going to get anything done. So you want to just hold it so the edge of the blade just goes against the plastic. Just like that. Now, I'm not comfortable holding it that way and working it, so I'm going to put it back down where I can actually see what I'm doing. And maybe the cameraman can zoom in a little bit here to get you guys a good look at what I'm doing here too. Nice and smooth. Now you can still see some remnants of the tabs on there. That's not going to hurt anything once you get the sandpaper out. And lay it on a flat surface, make sure it's good and flat, and just kind of ease. You're not putting pressure on this thing again. It's just enough to take the flash down. And there it is. That edge is ready for glue. It's smooth, it's clean, there's no tabs, there's no air spaces on it, and the MEK will have a good area to stick to. Now to just prove that point, we'll take and lay it up against the side of the building. Now you'll notice that the sides are angled somewhat too. There's a high point and a low point. The high point is going to go to the front of the building, and you hold it together, look at that, and you see there's no gap there. That one's ready. This side wall is now ready. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with the way that you're doing this, because if you're not comfortable with it, your chances of having an accident with a knife are much, much greater. I can't stress enough knife safety. You have to be careful with these things. These will cut. They don't care what they're cutting, they will cut. That's what they're made to do. Like any tool, it's made to do a job. If your hand happens to be in the way, the tool does not care. That's why you need to care. You need to be careful and watch what you're doing. And I'm just deflashing that bottom edge just a little bit. This wall especially you want to be careful with. You want to make sure that you're as smooth and flat as you can possibly humanly get it, because this is your load bearing. This is what's going to be up against the front of the building. This is going to hold your whole building together right here. So again, be careful. Don't overdo it. You don't want to underdo it either. Okay, and use your sense of feel. Feel that along there. If it feels like it's rough, it is rough. If it feels smooth, it's still rough. But you'll take care of that. So that looks like an awful lot of material that came off of there, but it's really not. It's just the way it curls around when you're doing it. And like I said, keep the blade almost flat, but just enough for that edge to start digging into that. Just a little bit. You don't want to be changing the shape of it. Now, just to make sure that we got it right, take and place it up against the front of the building again. This time we're on the other side. And set it up against there. And if you can't see daylight through it, you're doing pretty good. I think we touched that up with a little sandpaper, and this side will be ready to go on. Okay, see I've got all the pieces trimmed, deburred, and de-antlerfied, and we're ready to start assembling the building. Now, see how I have them laid out here? I want to make sure that I have the correct side to the correct part of the building. Like this. You can see now how they slope back. This one slopes this way, this one slopes this way. This is the front of the building, this will be the back of the building. So imagine picking the building up and the sides going in like that. This would be correct. Now, these little clamps, I don't know if you can get them anymore. They're made by X-Acto. They're nifty little clamps. You don't want to do anything that's going to require a whole lot of pressure. And quite honestly, these are about maxed out on the size of this building. So what I like to do is the first clamp, just lay it down there, stand the sidewall up in it, kind of like this, put the front wall up against it, and then kind of gingerly move the clamp. I've got it way too far apart actually, so I'm going to move that in just a touch, and we'll try this. Again, make sure your orientation is correct. You want your brickwork to the outside of the building. The smooth side goes in. And I'm having some kind of trouble keeping that standing up there. I usually have a hand over the top, but I want to make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing here, so I'm doing it this way. And this should work, although it didn't because I bumped it. This is this is probably the hardest part of the whole process right here, is getting this first wall put in. And these clamps are set up in such a way that when you push on this part, it wedges it, locks it in. So if I'm here and I push on this part here, Now it locks it in place. You can see how it pushes it in, and it's not going to come out until you release the clamp, which I kind of halfway released it. But yeah, sometimes they get a little stubborn. These clamps are about 10 years old, so they've seen their better days. So why am I clamping it together without glue in it? Well, could you imagine trying to manipulate this stuff around and having all that sticky glue around and leaving your fingerprints all over this delicate brickwork and stuff like that? It would not look good. So I clamp it together like this. Make sure that everything is flush. Make sure the wall is up against the outside. These clamps will make sure that you don't push it too far, but you don't want it leaning in either. So I'm not going to pick it up to show you guys, but this is perfectly straight down through here. Now, the neat thing about this MEK glue is you don't have to have them apart to put it in there. It has what's called capillary action, which means when you put it in there, the glue will actually seep in between the pieces, and it'll glue them together. And you don't have to leave them sitting there for too long either. So I'm going to put that off a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. A little bit on the brush, starting at the top. Kind of doing a little brush number up. And I may be overdoing it slightly, but I just want to make sure I've got enough solvent in there. The way this is not a cement. It doesn't cement them together. What it does is it actually melts the plastic. It does dissolve part of the plastic and makes it stick together. And I'm giving it just a little extra nudge. And again, you want to make sure you're getting it square. At this point, it's kind of difficult to tell, but I think the camera's picking that up. This is pretty square. So this I'm going to leave set for about 10 minutes before I manipulate it and move it around at all. And then I'll show you the next step. Alright, it's been about 8 or 10 minutes now since the clamps first went into place on here. And I feel comfortable enough with this to go to work on the other wall over here. So I'm going to flip the building around like this. And pick up the other wall again, making sure that you're keeping your orientation proper on this. Make sure that when you square it up that your high side is going to be on this corner, low side will be on this corner. And it's just a very simple little operation, just like before. I'll turn it just a little bit like this. And let's get the other two clamps over here. Open this one up. I got to de-wedge that. Kind of interesting little clamps these are. Like I said, they're made by X-Acto. Same company that makes the X-Acto knives. So fairly decent quality. Again, like if you're not trying to be real, if you're not going to hold together welding stock with these things, they're not strong clamps. But for this kind of work, they're quite well suited to the job. And I'm trying to manipulate. I need 3 hands here. Can one of you guys lend me a hand over here for a moment? Thank you. That was what I needed right there. Okay. I'm going to push it and nudge it. I don't want to engage the wedge lock just yet. Not until I get everything just about right there. Now, kick that in, and that one is locked in place. And this one here, it's going to go a little bit easier because we don't have to balance everything. We just have to balance the one wall. And let's put that one up there. Like that. You can use your feel down here to make sure that you're even, which I am not. There's enough pressure on the clamps to hold it in place, and as long as you don't have to move it too much, you should be okay. And I think that one's ready for glue. I like the way that looks. So again, just like on the other side, take the MEK, drop it down this way, then kind of brush it up and give it just another little shot, just for a little added insurance. That's it. That's all there is to it. Let this sit for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and put the back wall on. Okay, after about 20 minutes or so, you can see I've got all the clamps off of the building now, and the building is on its own, standing, and it's pretty solid, actually. I'm pretty impressed. As you can see, there's no real gaps along here. The one that shows up here, that's actually, there's part of the trim molding from the front that makes it look that way. So really nothing to worry about there. This side here, we have the same thing going on. The lighting's a little bit different, so you're not going to see the shadow quite as much. But as you can see, the inside of the building is it's all glued up and good to go. So now, to firm things up and finish it off, I'm going to put the back on. Don't put the back on upside down. Pay attention to what you're doing here, because I did do that once and it was not fun trying to get that apart and put it back together the right way. And again, this one does not go on to the front. The sides actually go onto it like that. So if you wanted to, you could theoretically make the back of the building kind of recessed a little bit. It would be extremely difficult to do that though, because I don't have any, well, I do have means of measuring it, but I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is just put the back on like this, flush, the way that was intended to be. Alright, so we're going to lay this across here like this. And I told you I was going to knock it over, didn't I? Alright, I'm going to put it on there, and I think I might have just moved it a little too much. Or maybe just enough. Or not enough. Sliding it together. And you don't want to move these walls around. You don't want to manipulate these because the glue is still setting there. Even though it's been sitting for a while and it is holding itself together, you don't want to push your luck with that. So be gentle, be careful. Now you got the wall in place, you don't have to worry about squeezing the building together and dislodging that front glue joint. Because trust me, you're not going to have a good day if that happens. Alright, wedge that together. And again, if you have just a little tiny bit of a reveal line, that's okay. Ideally, you don't want that, but if you can't get away without it, then by all means leave it there. Don't get real too particular about it. Once I get the second clamp on there, I'm going to take a closer look at it and see if I can get rid of the reveal line by pushing it up against the clamp. Something like that. Wedge that in. And there we go. I like the way that works. And at this point, it doesn't hurt to make sure that your building is squared up. Looking at the lines inside of the building there, you can see that the building is pretty close to square. I need to kick it off just a little bit this direction. And I'm going to call that good enough. So I take our model glue. I dislodged this over here. You got to keep a watch on this stuff. Otherwise, you let these things get away from you, and then you're out of luck. There we go. There we go. See, I thought I was ready, but it doesn't hurt to take another look, just to be good and sure. At this point, you don't want to have any mistakes. So you're going to take your time and make sure that everything is right, which it is. You can see that both sides of the building, there's a little tiny bit of a reveal on each side. That's going to work just like that. So I'm going to take the glue and run it in there. I'm going to bead down this side. And we're going to touch a tack on this side. We'll do the same thing we did in the front. Brush up. I don't know if I got that. I couldn't see what I was doing in there because I had it facing the other way. Well, let's do this. There we go. I know I got it that time. Alright, we'll let that set for a while and come back and the building will be that much closer to being completed. It'll be just a matter of time to get everything taped up, tape off the windows, get some paint on it, make it look like a brick building, and then we get to paint up the trim work on it. That's going to be a lot of fun, but that'd be a subject for another video. That's going to do it for this one for now, part one actually of putting together a DPM kit. This is your basic assembly. And another thing too, I'm going to have to figure out a way to fabricate a door for this. I don't know what happened to the door for this kit. It wasn't in the box. I don't know. So, I don't know. I have to kit bash something in there. So, that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it very much. NJP out here at the NJP Ranch. I'll talk again real soon. And of course, as always, until we talk again, whatever it is in life you do, keep on doing what it is you do.